Hello, everybody. This is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Part 2, Chapter 14. Just as Levin reached home in the best humor in the world, he heard the jingling of bells at the side entrance. Someone from the railroad station was his first thought. It's time for the Moscow train. Who could have come? Brother Nikolai? Did he not say that instead of going abroad, he might perhaps come to see me? For a moment it occurred to him that this visit might spoil his plans for the spring, but, disgusted at the selfishness of his thought, his mind instantly received his brother with open arms, so to speak, and he began to hope with affectionate joy that it was really he whom the bell announced. He quickened his horse, and as he came out from behind a hedge of acacias which had the house from his sights, he saw a traveler, dressed in a shuba, sitting in a hired troika. It was not his brother. I only hope it is someone whom I can talk with, he thought. Ah, he cried as he recognized Stepan Arkadyevitch. Here is the most delectable of guests. Ah, how glad I am to see you. I shall certainly learn from him if Kitty is married, he added to himself. Not even the memory of Kitty pained him this splendid spring morning. You scarcely expected me, I suppose, said Stepan Arkadyevitch, leaping out of the sledge, his face spotted with mud, but radiant with health and pleasure. I am come first to see you, secondly, to fire off a gun or two, and thirdly, to sell my wood at Yergoshovo. Perfect, isn't it? What do you think of the spring? But how could you have got here in a sledge? Sledge is better than a telega, Konstantin Dmitrich, replied the driver, who was an old acquaintance. No, indeed, I am delighted to see you again, said Levin with a smile of boyish joy. He conducted his guest to the room which was always kept in readiness for visitors, and instantly had the traps brought up, a gripsack, a gun in its case, and a box of cigars. Levin, leaving him to wash and dress himself, went out to see the prikishchik, and deliver his mind about the clover and the ploughing. Agafya Mikhailovna, who had very much at heart the honor of the mansion, stopped him on his way through the entry and asked him a few questions about dinner. Do just as you please, replied Levin as he went out, only make haste about it. When he returned, Stepan Arkadyevitch, smiling after his toilet, was just coming out of his room, and together they went upstairs. No, I'm very happy to have got out of your house at last. I shall now learn the mystery of your existence. Truly, I envy you. What a house! How convenient everything is! How bright and delightful! Said Stepan Arkadyevitch, forgetting that bright days in the springtime were not always there. And your old nurse, what a charming old soul! All that's lacking is a pretty little chambermaid, but that does not fall in your severe and monastic style. But this is very good. Among other interesting news, Stepan Arkadyevitch told his host that Sergei Ivanovitch expected to come into the country this summer, but he did not say a word about the Sherbatskys, and he simply transmitted his wife's cordial greeting. Levin appreciated this delicacy. As usual, he had stored up during his hours of solitude a throng of ideas and impressions which he could not share with any of his domestics, and which he poured out into Oblonsky's ears. Everything passed under review, his spring joys, his plans and farming projects, and all the criticisms on the books about agriculture which he had read, and, above all, the skeleton of a work which he himself proposed to write on the subject of the rural commune. Stepan Arkadyevitch, amiable and always ready to grasp a point, showed unusual cordiality, and Levin even thought that he noticed a certain flattering consideration and an undertone of tenderness in his bearing. The united efforts of Agafya Mikhailovna and the cook resulted in the two friends, who were half-starved, betaking themselves to the zakuska before the soup was served, and devouring bread and butter, cold chicken and salted mushrooms, and finally in Levin calling for the soup before the little pastries, prepared by the cook in the hope of dazzling the guests, were done. But Stepan Arkadyevitch, though he was used to different kinds of dinners, found everything exactly to his mind. The home-brewed liquors, the bread, the butter, and especially the cold chicken, the mushrooms, the shchi, the fowl with white sauce, and the Crimean wine were delicious. Perfect, perfect, he cried as he lit a big cigarette after the second course. I feel as if I had escaped the shocks and noise of a ship and had landed on a peaceful shore. And so you say that the element represented by the working man ought to be studied above all others and be taken as a guide in the choice of economic expedients. I am a profanus in these questions, but it seems to me that this theory and its application would have an influence on the working man. Yes, but hold on, I am not speaking of political economy, but of rural economy, considered as a science. You must study the premises, the phenomena, just the same as in the natural sciences, and the workingman from the economical and ethnographical point of view. But here Agafya Mikhailovna entered with the dessert of the preserves. "No, accept my compliments, Agafya Mikhailovna," said Stepan Arkadyevitch, kissing the ends of his hairy fingers. "What nice pickles! What delicious beer! Well, Kostya, isn't it time to go?" he added. Levin looked out the window towards the sun, which was sinking behind the tree-tops, still bare and leafless. "It is time. Kuzma, have the horses hitched up," he cried as he went downstairs. Stepan Arkadyevitch followed him and set to work carefully to remove his gun from the case. It was a gun of the newest pattern and very expensive. Kuzma, who foresaw a generous fee, gave him assiduous attention and helped him put on his stockings and his hunting boots, and Stepan Arkadyevitch accepted his aid complacently. "If the merchant Rabinin comes in while we're gone, Kostya, do me a favor to have him kept till we get back. Are you going to sell your wood in Rabinin?" "Yes, do you know him?" "Oh, I certainly know him. I've done business with him, positively and finely." Stepan Arkadyevitch burst into a laugh. "Positively and finally" were the favorite words of the merchant. "Yes, he is very droll in his speech. She knows where her master is going," he added, patting Laska, who was jumping and barking around Levin, licking now his hand and now his boots and gun. The Dolgusha was waiting at the steps as they came out. "I had the horses put in, although we have but a little distance to go," said Levin. "But if you would rather walk, we can." "No, I would just as lief ride," replied Stepan Arkadyevitch as he mounted the Dolgusha. He sat down, tucking round his legs a striped plaid, and lit a cigar. "How can you get along without smoking, Kostya? A cigar, it is not only a pleasure, it's the very crown and sign of delight. This is life indeed. How delicious! Voltbui, I should like to live like this." "What's to prevent?" added Levin with a smile. "Yes, but you are a happy man, for you have everything that you like. You like horses, you have them. Dogs, you have them. Hunting, here it is. An estate, here it is." "Perhaps it is because I enjoy what I have and don't covet what I have not," replied Levin with Kitty in his mind. Stepan Arkadyevitch understood and looked at him without speaking. Levin was grateful because Oblonsky had not yet mentioned the Shtcherbatskys, and had understood with his usual tact that it was a subject which he dreaded, but now he felt anxious to find out how matters stood. But he did not like to inquire. "No, how go your affairs?" he asked at last, blaming himself for thinking only of his selfish interests. Oblonsky's eyes glistened with gaiety. "You will not admit that one can want hot rolls when he has his monthly rations. In your eyes it's a crime. But for me, I cannot admit the possibility of living without love," he replied, construing Levin's question in his own fashion. "What's to be done about it? I am so constituted, and I can't see the harm that it does." "What, is there somebody else?" Levin demanded. "There is, brother. You know the type of women in Ossian? These women that one sees only in dreams, but they really exist, and are terrible. Woman, you see, is an inexhaustible theme. You can never cease studying it, and it always presents some new phase. So much the better not to study it then. Not at all. Some mathematics said that happiness consisted in searching for truth and never finding it." Levin listened and said no more, but it was idle for him to enter into his friend's soul and understand the charm which he took in studies of this sort.